We have a smorgasbord of trade deadline content. Is Lonzo Ball coming to Charlotte? Is Colin Sexton on his way out? Miles Bridges is staying back, apparently. And is the freak coming to the Queen City? Oh my God. Trade deadline content day. All today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also watch Yahoo Sports Daily with Jason Fitz and Caroline Fitton. They're out in Santa Clara, San Jose, San Francisco. Nobody knows where San Francisco actually plays their home games, but they're somewhere out there in the Bay Area. They're somewhere in the Bay Area. Go check them out, though. Super Bowl week. Jason Fitz, Caroline Fitton, Yahoo Sports Daily. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio, 92.7 FM. By the way, just so you know, the Bay joke, I know that the 49ers play in San Francisco, but they also play in San Jose. Weirdly enough, it's like a New York Giants Jets thing with New Jersey. Just to I promise I'm smart, people, okay? I promise. I just wanted you to know that. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We appreciate them, as always. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. We always appreciate FanDuel. Big time episode, man, because just as a little bit of a warning for people, this is a Wednesday. This is Wednesday morning. So we're going to try to get ahead, knock on wood. We'll try to get ahead of all of the following trades, all of the stuff that just might happen before trade deadline day, which is the 5th, Thursday, 4 p.m. is the deadline. We'll probably be giving you an episode. We got one more tomorrow in the morning, and then this is where the schedule gets kind of weird because we don't know what's coming down the pipeline. Jeff Peterson, is he the mad scientist that actually messes with the roster a little bit? Who's going out, who's coming in, just to stay on your P's and Q's with the schedule, folks, because who knows what's happening. And the biggest the biggest story, the biggest thing that would call for an emergency pod, so big that I might have to stop Wes and Walker.
What?
And actually, or just set up a new, different little system and host both shows at the same time. Host Wes and Walker and host Locked On Hornets. Because Ramona Shelburne, one of the NBA insiders that you can absolutely trust, Ramona Shelburne on ESPN LA with Mason in Ireland, when talking about the Giannis trade, where's he going to go? Who knows? She said, quote, "I think there are other teams that we have not talked about that would be very surprising that are also making calls on Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think Charlotte is an interesting team."
Wow.
I've heard that name out there.
Oh, my God.
I throw that your way, Doug. I don't know if you've listened to the clip. I don't know if you've listened to the whole interview, but that's what she says. I think there are other teams that we have not talked about that would be very surprising that are also making calls on Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think Charlotte is an interesting team. I've heard that name out there, ... Your thoughts?
I think Charlotte is a very popular name right now because they have won 7 games in a row. Yes, that's right. 7 games, almost 8. 7, the only sample size that matters. I think that it would be irresponsible of Chef Jeff if he didn't make a call and figure out if it was even a remote possibility. Why not make the call? You can't make a deal if you don't make a call. So I would hope that they would have made a call. Do I think there is a serious possibility of Giannis landing in Charlotte? No, I do not. Do I think that there is a serious possibility that the Hornets could be involved in a deal that gets Giannis Antetokounmpo to Cleveland, to New York, somewhere else? Yes, because I think the Hornets have the contracts. I think they have some of the contracts. They have all kinds of different vehicles that we've already seen Chef Jeff use to make some of these bigger deals happen. And we've seen him be willing to do that if it means more assets for the Charlotte Hornets. So yes, I could absolutely see them being part of the deal. if there was even a remote possibility of Giannis being added to the Charlotte Hornets, I think they have to explore all of those avenues because he would fundamentally change the reality of what it means to be a fan of this team and to be on this team and the playoff path and everything. So you have to make the call.
You said remote possibility. I think we are in that space. I don't think that was a space that existed for this team through the prior decade to land somebody like a Giannis. I talked about this when we first approached this topic. They have the assets to compete. They used to not even have the assets to compete for some of these stars that are out there. Now they do. They have winning ways to possibly be attractive to a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yep. That is something that we have not experienced in the last decade. They're still 5 games below 500. It's hilarious. Yet, not only us here in Charlotte, not only Doug in Nashville, but nationally, everybody is treating this team as something different than being a franchise 5 games under 500 because they know if they've been paying attention or if you're just coming in and then paying attention to what happened at the beginning of the season. They got hurt. Brandon Miller out the second game of the year. LaMelo in and out of the lineup. They're finally healthy. Proof of concept. They're playing really well, like really, really well. Like the starting lineup is the best starting lineup in the league really well. Is that enticing to Giannis? Where what you would do if you go after him is you would flip Miles and Giannis, right? If the idea was to keep the core as intact as possible, that would mean you keep LaMelo, you keep Con, you keep Brandon, and then you give up really anything else you want to go after Giannis Antetokounmpo. I would think it would be something like Miles, Colin Sexton, Tijan Salon, any Giannis Hornets fake trades. Those are the 3 names I've seen the most mentioned just from fans. Nothing that is being suggested by anybody in the know, just fake trades that are being made up. It's Tijan Salon, it's Colin Sexton, and then it's Miles Bridges because, of course, you have to get rid of somebody that's making a little bit of money to go after Giannis. And then it's however many picks, right? It's 4 firsts, 3 swaps, 2 swaps, 3 firsts, all the swaps. I don't know. I think you'd probably get 4 for Giannis, especially if you're holding on to Con, Brandon Miller, and LaMelo Ball. In any world where you keep those 3 guys, you're giving up 4 first-rounders and probably a swap or 2. And that's the question that I think the Hornets have to ask themselves. One, can you legitimately have a conversation with Milwaukee keeping the top 3 guys, the B3? And 2, if you can, then are you okay giving up all of the assets? Those are the 2 questions that you have if Giannis is a possibility.
Yeah, well, the conversation with Milwaukee is less important than the conversation with Giannis because you're not going to give up all of those assets if there's just 0% possibility that you can retain Giannis, because I don't, even adding Giannis to this team, I don't think makes them a finals contender. You've got to build towards something at that point. And so as you take a sip of your drink.
Yeah. Look, they're an Eastern Conference Finals contender. Which is something this franchise has never seen before.
If he's healthy, because if he's not,
right. You know. So these are all the risks, right? Giannis is still, when healthy, a top 3 player. He is no less than a top 5 player in the NBA. You can argue in some pretty elite spaces where he belongs. So if he's healthy, and you pair him, I mean, Doug, you're telling me if you keep the core together, you would be able to somehow drop Giannis into the starting lineup with LaMelo, Con, Brandon, and Musa, and then I don't know what that's an Eastern Conference Finals contender at the very least. The funniest thing that I heard throughout this entire Giannis stuff, the funniest damn thing I've heard, is how Milwaukee is inclined to move him because Giannis is threatening to ruin the tank, which you have to really think about what that means. Yeah. It means that he's so good and that he's going to play so hard and that he's going to try to win basketball games. I'm going to ruin the organization. I'm going to try to win basketball games. I'm going to win. I promise. Don't tempt me. I find it so amazing that is the threat to an organization. And so if Milwaukee is so inclined to move him, that guy that has that kind of impact, Charles Lee puts him in center field. He just talked about this after the San Antonio game, after they won 6 in a row, saying there are some things we could get better at, including our decision-making when Moose is out of the game, who we put in center field. Giannis is like one of the best center fielders in NBA history.
if you could look, I'm with you. And I agree with you. I do think, even though it would take a monumental run to sort of get themselves into a playoff position from where they are now. I think Giannis could do it, but you would have to promise me he would be healthy. And that's where the whole rub in this thing is, if he doesn't intend to sign a long-term agreement with Charlotte where they could get him healthy this offseason and then go into next season like feeling super confident about it in seasons after that, then that's when it starts to get really exciting. But we are talking about remote possibilities, and I just want to shout out your point that, like, Ramona Shelburne is not one of these folks that goes on Twitter and just like puts out random names and just says like what teams should do and pretends that that's a rumor. She's a respectable reporter, and she's going on ESPN LA. She didn't go on Wes and Walker and say Charlotte's name, because that would be going there to say a name for a local radio show. She went to a show in LA and brought Charlotte's name up. And I think that speaks to the fact that she would do that and not immediately think that she would be laughed at or not taken seriously, I think speaks to the very rapid respect turnaround that Jeff Peterson, Rick Schnall, and Gabe Plotkin, and I'm going to show them respect by not saying Schlotkin, like because they have earned it.
No, I kind of like it. Oh no,
I'm going to say, but just for right now, for this moment. To celebrate this moment where Ramona Shelburne goes on a radio show and says Giannis to Charlotte and doesn't get laughed out of the room, I'm going to give them their respect and say, Gabe Plotkin, Rick Schnall, Jeff Peterson, you have made a rapid respect turnaround from a very low point under the previous administration. And we should, whether Giannis, however remote the possibility is, we should salute that idea.
Unbelievable turnaround. Those guys have done a fantastic job. All right, plenty more to come. I mean, we got a lot to get to. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
He's everywhere!
Is Lonzo Ball going to be paired with his brother, Baby Ball, for a couple of seconds attached to his contract? Who's going out in that scenario? Looks like Miles is staying put. We'll dissect what all of that means coming up next, LOH. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you are right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season is over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Can we have a couple more Giannis points? Rapid fire, and we mean it this time. We really mean it. Your point about Ramona Shelburne. She's not thirsty for clicks. She's not a even news breaker in the keep refreshing her timeline sense. I mean, she is a newsbreaker in the sense of big stories. Like this is, look, what we've had a lot of breaking news about the Hornets that isn't really, really real. This is one where it's certainly a possibility. Okay, the other thing is, you have the assets. It doesn't mean you have more assets than everybody. Sure. Do you have more than the teams competing for them? Minnesota, a very popular name. So Milwaukee would have the leverage if both teams truly wanted him, where you would say, look, the Hornets, they're giving us, maybe you even call Jeff Peterson and you say, hey, look, Minnesota, they're going to go ahead and give us Jaden McDaniels and a bunch of picks. You got to give us one of the core three. You have to. If not,
Brandon, Kahn. I mean, they wanted. There's been reporting that they want the sun, the moon, the stars. So the Hornets could have made a call and they say, look, we want Kahn, we want and it's like, all right, well, no.
Right. So if Minnesota decides that they can't have Jaden McDaniels, or I don't even know how you get it done without Rudy or Jaden right there, because they have the picks. I don't know how many more picks that they have. Rob Dillingham has not shown you enough, I think, unless you think he's going to have this like Reed Shepherd breakout in another year or so. Either way, you have the assets. You have more assets than probably 85% of the league. So that's the way that you compete. At OKC, you throw them out just because they're not really going to go after them. You have more than Golden State. You have more than New York. You have a more attractive package for them than both of those contenders. Minnesota, that's the interesting one, and we'll see if any other team gets in the mix. Cleveland, I know Cleveland, after shuffling the deck a little bit, going after Harden. I guess I don't know how that affects the money. But anyways, those are my rapid-fire Giannis points. Anything before we move on?
I would just feel better if the Hornets did what Utah did, which is use 3 fake first-round picks to acquire Jaren Jackson Jr., where you're not talking about unprotected first-round picks, where if Jaren Jackson Jr. gets hurt and is out for a year plus, you're not handing over an unprotected first-round pick to Memphis. You're handing these pick swaps that go through 4 or 5 different teams that don't mean anything. That's the deal I would be more comfortable with than giving up 4 unprotected first or 4 lightly protected first. For Giannis, again, if you're talking about Giannis 4 or 5 years ago, but the guy pulls up with a calf injury every couple of weeks now, there's obviously he needs to get healthy, and there's just a big question mark around all of that. So I would just feel more comfortable about the Hornets' future under those circumstances, particularly if they're not only going to have to give up the picks, but give up real young assets as well.
It's the only chance at a leverage play teams / the Hornets have is he's 31, he's a little injured now, and we don't know for sure if he's going to sign a long-term extension. Those are the leverage plays if you're a team seeking Giannis. Let's move on because we might bring Big Brother Ball to the Queen City. This has been something that has been rumored about for the last 3-4 years, where the Hornets have legitimately been in on some Lonzo Ball conversations. And here's Mark Stein on his famous Stein line report saying sources, quote, sources say there has been some preliminary conversation between the Cavaliers and the Hornets about Lonzo Ball trade constructions that could furnish Charlotte with second-round draft capital and thus enable the Hornets to pair the elder Ball with his younger brother, LaMelo. I believe Jake Fisher also had something on this. Basically, this is real. Yes, you mentioned the Jake Fisher tweet right here. He says, quote, I've confirmed via multiple sources that there has been some preliminary conversation between Charlotte and Cleveland. The Cavs would compensate the Hornets with multiple second-round picks to bring Lonzo to his brother LaMelo Ball's franchise. I'll leave you to explain what all of this means with the stats, the injuries, all of it. What are your thoughts on possibly adding Lonzo?
Yeah, Lonzo's stats are down in Cleveland since the trade. It hasn't really worked out there. Is he miscast? Are the knees cooked? Is he totally is the body broken down? I don't know. Maybe we bring on, if this happens, we can bring on Danny Cunningham and try to get he's a straight shooter, try to get the straight shooter story from him on the Lonzo Ball time. But the thing to understand here is that Cleveland needs, whether they go after Giannis or not, they've got the highest payroll in the league by a mile. And the results aren't there in the Eastern Conference. They've got to do something to shed some money. And he makes $10 million this season. That would certainly help them. And that's why the second round picks would be coming to Charlotte. And the other thing to understand is that next season, he's got a club option on his contract. So to me, I look at this and I say, is Lonzo exactly what the Hornets need in terms of, they need some. We've talked about the 2 biggest holes on their roster right now are a serious rim protecting, shooting, mobile big, or some combination of 2 of those 3 things. And then the other thing is a legitimate playmaker behind Lonzo Ball, because Colin Sexton, the fit hasn't been perfect. Sion James not really ready for those responsibilities. Does Lonzo really do much for you in the latter? I don't know. I think, 3-and-D with a little playmaking could be nice as an auxiliary piece that occasionally comes off the bench. But to me, it's kind of a no-lose because there's a club option in the next season. If LaMelo would be made happy by this move, I don't know. It just seems like kind of a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. One, you're right. If you care about making LaMelo happy, that would be cool to bring his brother. But even short of the LaMelo stuff, I've always said if his name was John Doe, he would still fit the prototype that I want on my basketball team. And that's the conversation we had a few years back when Lonzo still had this fresh skill set where he was just dabbling in the injury waters before it became a real career threatening and just career derailing period injury that he had.
Yeah.
But then when there was this, can you pair the Ball brothers together? And then people would just brush it off and say, nah, man, you don't really care about Lonzo. You just want the Ball brothers to play together. I mean, he's got a skill set that's always made sense on this Hornets roster. Here's the difference. Now, 4 years removed from when I think a lot of those conversations started, man, the knees, you're right. They're cooked. Okay. It completely derailed his career. There's just no question about it. The guy missed 2 straight years where he did not play a single minute of NBA basketball. Then he plays 2 years ago for the first time in quite some time. The stats, it's not like they're down. They're bad.
Sorry, yeah.
No, they're just, it's okay. It's just they're really, really bad. And I hate it for him because I loved Lonzo coming out of college. I thought he was going to be sick and completely changed his game after he wasn't the franchise point guard. But last year with Chicago, 36% from the field, 34% from three. All right, 34, it's not good, but okay, maybe there's something salvageable. This year with Cleveland, a team looking to contend, 30%, barely, 30% from the field and 27% from three on 4 attempts per game. So, look, if you wanted to go after him because it's 30 games, you got a couple second-round picks attached to it. Maybe he does something for you because he's reinvigorated here in Charlotte, which is something that could be a part of his game. Human nature. Guys get a change of scenery. It's the right change of scenery. Maybe everything changes for him. Great. Hell yeah, baby. We can take that flyer. You get a couple seconds, and if you don't like the 30-game experience that you have, then you have $10 million freed up, depending on what kind of salary you send out. It's just a zero risk. There's just... I don't really know what the risk would be. So if you want to go after Lonzo, yeah, it makes all the sense. And this screams Jeff Peterson. 2nd-round picks, expiring contract. This screams what Jeff Peterson wants to do.
By the way, we haven't even mentioned that we just went fishing. Oh, we got a big one. It's named Lonzo
Bought that
Ball.
one for a while.
And look at that blazer. What do you think about that blazer that Fish is rocking there?
Can only be outdone by the stash.
I will aggregate that. Absolutely. Look at that thing.
Yes,
both of the things.
We
the
are
hair
aggregating.
And the stash.
Sorry. We will aggregate.
I'm jealous
Yes.
of Jake Fisher for one reason and one reason only, and it's that he can grow the hair in the middle of the stash so wonderfully. Like I've never been able to accomplish that. It's just right under the nose. I can't do it.
I'm a huge mock neck guy. I think mine goes a little bit further up the neck, so he's got like a maybe a mock neck, but normal T-shirt, and almost a mock neck, if you will. And I really like the look. Jake Fisher, the hair too. I mean, there's not a hair out of place on that comb back, baby. Jake Fisher, thumbs up. Let's
wonderful.
move on.
Hold on. Now I tried to derail us, but I want to get us back on the rail because I have just a couple of more Lonzo thoughts. I did undersell how bad the numbers are. According to Cleveland Glass, points per shot attempt, the first percentile, and you're like, oh, first, that's great. No, it's reverse. Like it means he's worst points per shot attempt in the league. Turnover percentage at 17.8% for a wing. Now it's worst percentage for a wing.
Yeah.
Turnover
I'd
percentage.
like to see the numbers overall. Just like it might still be
where
bad.
the percentiles. I could look that. I'll look that up in the break because I can do that on Pivot Fade. So turnover percentage at 17.8% for a wing. And these numbers might change if you were to classify them as a point or a combo. But for a wing, it's the worst turnover percentage. Great assist to usage, great assist percentage, again, for a wing. But so I did undersell that. And the Cavs are like 7 points worse offensively when he's on the floor. And again, what is that? Is that Cleveland? How much of that is Cleveland and what they've tried to do with him? How much of that is Lonzo? You guys can fight about that in the comments. We can get Danny on if this move comes down. I think if they made a move, it would be what? Pat Connaughton? You just do straight up. You just do Connaughton for Ball and say goodbye to the wonderful dye job that Pat Connaughton flashed and say thanks for all the vibes. But you're trading vibes. You're trading some vibes from Pat for Lonzo. You get Lonzo and LaMelo. You get some more vibes there. and then you get some second round picks and you call it a day and you go Lonzo. I don't even know if you're going with is Lonzo better than Josh Green? I don't think so.
No.
So he's not even. I don't even think he's cracking the rotation early
Right.
on. But injury wise could open some things up for him.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Hornets can absorb salary, so you don't have to give up any salary if you don't want, and then you can save Pat Connaughton for the vibes, and then you can eventually move on from Colin Sexton. If a Trey Man trade is out there, that one's going to be harder because he's got a longer deal, but you can get rid of some roster pieces because you don't play right until after the deadline. So
do they
you
have
still
an
have
exception? How would that work? How would they bring in the salary?
Yeah, they do.
Without...
They do have the, They do have the exception that they can work, so that they can absorb salary. They don't have
What's the
to
total
match.
of that exception?
It's 15. I think it's 14 and change, if I'm not mistaken. But what I am pretty sure that they can absorb salary there. So you don't even have to get rid of anybody to welcome Lonzo Ball. It could just be Lonzo Ball and picks.
Oh, it's the Josh Okogie trade exception.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, so no, that's the Suns got the trade exception from Josh Okogie. All right, I'll research this. I'll figure out.
Well,
what this
I
trade
think they just
exception is.
didn't. They just didn't use their mid level, right? Did they use their mid level? Either way, we can figure it out.
Into a mid level, interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Listen, I've never claimed to be a cap expert.
Neither am I.
But we'll figure it out.
Neither am I. I just think they don't have to give up pieces. That's the point. They don't have to give up anything of value to
or
go
that
get
or that
Lonzo.
wonderful dye job.
Coming up next, final segment, LOH.
Bees everywhere!
Okay, talked about the guys that they could be welcoming in. Who's a guy that is probably not on his way out anymore? We'll get to that coming up next, LOH. This episode is brought to you by Quo. New year, new systems. This is the time when a lot of us look at the messier parts of how we run our business and think there has to be a better way. And there is. Streamlining your communications is one of the quickest upgrades you can make. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo. QUO. Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Because when your team is reachable, organized, and communicating in one place, you're not just working cleaner, you're creating more opportunities to connect with customers. Your whole team can call and text from one shared business number so nothing gets missed. Everyone sees the full conversation thread, which makes replies faster and more personal. It's no surprise. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses, from solo operators to growing teams. Make this the year where no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo for free. Plus, you can get 20% off your first 6 months when you go to quo.com/LockedOnNBA. That's QUO, quo.com/LockedOnNBA. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. This episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Game Time?
Game time?
There's nothing like being in the NBA arena, any NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that's the part we always don't like all that much. That's the part that's not always so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle, and it puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. You can pull up the Game Time app, pick an upcoming NBA game, and have tickets locked in within minutes. I love seeing the all-in price up front. There are no surprise fees at checkout, and I also love being able to see the view from the seat before buying, because it always makes the decision much easier. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON, Locked On, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. And remember, it's gametime.co, not gametime.com. More Locked On Hornets ahead. Okay, you want to move on? Did you do some cap research and have all the figuring outs of everything? What you got over there, Doug?
I got my TI-89 calculator out and figured this out. No, I no, this is from Sam Quinn of CBS Sports.
Okay.
It says that the Hornets do have their full $14.1 million mid-level exception at their disposal, which they could use to absorb a contract of Ball size and keep Pat Connaughton's wonderful dye job. I don't know why Sam wrote that. That's interesting that he added that addendum there.
That's just good journalist work right there.
Yeah. So what I always say on the show is that we're not always right, but we're eventually right, which is the best kind of right to be. Also, he goes through here and mentions, Sam Quinn does, that in 2020 LeVar Ball guaranteed a championship if his three sons played together for the Hornets. So get all three of them. I guarantee that this is back before they drafted him. right after they drafted LaMelo. Said, get all three of them. I guarantee they win a championship. Folks don't understand that. So I think that, yes, if they get Lonzo Ball, they've got to find some room to fit in LiAngelo as well. Get him back.
It's not like he hadn't played here before. At least put on a Hornets jersey. There was
LeVar
that
the Prophet.
thing.
I mean, you got to at least see it out, see if it's true.
Yeah. All right. And also, we're always mostly or kind of right. That's not even true. We were just kind of mostly right there. I said 14.5, 15 million.
We're eventually
14.1
right.
mid-level exception, but we move on. Okay, so Lonzo Ball could be on his way to Charlotte. That makes sense. Giannis, probably not, but it's fun to dream. Here's something real interesting as well, coming in from Sam Amick of The Athletic / New York Times. He says, quote, while there is significant interest around the league regarding Miles Bridges, with the Bucks, the Warriors, and the Suns having known to covet what the 27-year-old brings on the floor, a league source close to Bridges said he is highly unlikely to be traded. He's highly likely to remain past the deadline. Bridges' contract runs through next season when he's owed $22.8 million. He's extension eligible this summer. So I think the key phrase to point to here, a league source close to Bridges. It's interesting. A league source close to Bridges said he is highly likely to remain with the Hornets past the deadline. Your thoughts on the Sam Amick report?
I think it makes all the sense in the world for a number of reasons. I think that probably the value that the Hornets would be seeking for Miles Bridges, considering what he has meant to the team in terms of his availability to play, his relationship with LaMelo Ball, and the contributions he makes in terms of his ability to score in bunches, to, he does a lot of things on the floor. We've discussed issues in the fourth quarter, some like clutch time issues, but he does a lot when he's on the floor. So the value that they would be seeking is probably higher than what teams are willing to offer, considering we haven't seen Miles do that in a playoff situation. So I think with the Hornets winning ball games like they are, wanting to keep the chemistry together, they probably should value him a little bit higher and see if anyone is willing to take it. I don't think anyone was. And so he'll probably remain with the team until his contract becomes an expiring contract. At that point, he may have some playoff experience. We'll see. Then the value may even be higher, but he's going to have value just as a vehicle to move $22.8 million off of a team's books or to facilitate a trade.
Feels like the front office over there with the Hornets, they are thinking along the same lines that we are here on Locked On Hornets, that the Hornets fan base is thinking. When you go on a 7-game winning streak and the starting lineup that Miles is a part of and a significant part of, when they are dominating the league, such as what they are, not only against mediocre teams, not even against bad teams, but against good teams, you don't disrupt that. And things have changed. You could say it's short-sighted. It's only a 7-game winning streak. Okay, the starting lineup sample, that goes back to when Musa started playing 30 minutes a game all the way back December 23rd, when he got his first start in the string of starts against the Wizards. We all know that they dominated the month of January. But that sample with Miles, a significant part of the starting lineup, it does change the calculus on what you do with him before you get to the deadline.
Everything.
It changes everything. It changes everything, especially with Miles being cast in the right role for him, where he is a 3rd/4th guy. He's the 4th guy in the starting lineup right now.
Yeah.
It's Brandon, it's LaMelo, it's Khan and Miles, where they kind of change, it feels like, the responsibility, whatever. But 3 or 4, that's the right kind of offensive responsibility that you want for him. And you're right, he is versatile. He can do a whole bunch of stuff for you. And so when he's in the right role, I think he is very valuable. So the questions you have to ask yourself is, okay, speaking of all this being short-sighted, clearly he is going to be way more tradable than the top 3 guys in that starting lineup that we've already discussed. Can you substitute somebody at the power forward spot for Miles Bridges and still keep everything moving and grooving? That's the question that you have, one. But the other thing is, if you trade Miles Bridges and you have, or if you don't, that's the thing. If you don't trade Miles and then numbers start to wane a little bit and then the starting lineup doesn't dominate as much at the beginning of next year, and then maybe you don't even get an unprotected first, right? Is it worth it, or is the contract worth it enough? I think the latter part here, my last point, is probably one where you just go ahead and bank that Miles is going to remain at this status quo, never be a great three-point shooter, but hit some every once in a while, at least as a threat from really anywhere on the court for the most part, gets downhill, does some things that you don't have everybody else that can do, right? And even if the numbers do slip by the starting lineup or Miles as the years go on, remember, the contract only gets more valuable. So you have that fail-safe to kind of cushion some of the risks that you have by not trading him now. That's why it makes sense, right? This is the reason why it makes sense that you just hold on to Miles Bridges, despite it being a very real possibility. Before the last month and a half, there was a real possibility that you might just send him out of the organization.
I would say one more thing. If you are considering moving on from Colin Sexton, you have to have someone on this team that can both get downhill and score. And Miles, I mean, particularly if you go back to that New Orleans game when they desperately needed good offense, efficient offense, which is like getting fouled or getting a bucket at the rim, Miles was delivering that. And that's when Miles is at his best. When he puts his head down and he gets to the rim and he gets fouled and he's not taking these like floaters from just outside the paint trying to bank it off the glass, or he's taking, wild step back threes. He's taken the ladder out of his game significantly. The other part is still a work in progress. But when he's doing that, when he's getting downhill and getting fouled and scoring like that, that's when he's at his most valuable. And Colin does that too. And if you're going to send Colin away, you got to have somebody on the team that can do that, particularly in a playoff series or a play-in game when defenses get tighter. So all that to say, and this is sort of my bow on this episode, is if you're going to tinker with a good thing, you better tinker carefully. And it better be a long-term tinker. No short-term tinkers.
That is a great bow to tie on this episode. All right, that'll do it for Locked On Hornets. We have plenty more content to chew on, even tomorrow, the day of the deadline. Con Knippel in the three-point contest. We at least have to mention it at the end of the show. We can dive more into it tomorrow.
Star Weekend.
Rick Stahl suiting up. We'll
talk about it. We'll talk about it. Don't worry.
We'll get to all of it in the next episode. Doug Branson, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Also go check out Yahoo Sports Daily with Jason Fitz and Caroline Fenton. It's Super Bowl week, and they're covering it quite well. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Sports Radio 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.
See you.